Have you ever felt like a guest in your own life, as if every decision you made was pre-approved by someone else's standards? You wake up, follow the plan, meet expectations that aren't yours. Smile when you're supposed to, speak when allowed, fail quietly, succeed with modesty. Everything is already written, and yet something inside you resists. A quiet rebellion, not loud, not violent, but steady, like a pulse under the skin. A whisper that says, "This isn't me." But if this isn't you, then who are you? That's the first question Nietzsche dares us to ask. What if the values you worship are not yours? What if they were handed to you like a costume at birth, decorated, acceptable, and utterly foreign? To be truly alive, he said, you must become the creator of your own values. So today we step into that fire. We burn everything false. We stand in the ashes. And from there, we begin again. There is a quiet violence in living by rules you never agreed to. You were born into a world already defined. Good and bad, success and failure, love and shame. Before you could speak, these ideas had already shaped your cage. You learned to say thank you when praised, to shrink when criticized, to chase approval like oxygen. But all the while, the core of you, the wild, wordless core, waited, silent, suffocated, watching you live a life that didn't belong to it. Nietzsche called this the morality of the herd, the unexamined obedience to values created for control, not truth. He saw how society builds its temples from conformity and punishes the soul that dares to leave. Do you ever feel like someone finally sees the part of you you've always hidden? Here, you don't have to hide anymore. You're safe now. And don't forget to subscribe to my channel so we can keep walking this path together. Thank you. But he also believed in something more powerful than fear. He believed in becoming. To create your own values is not a rebellion. It's a return, not a scream against the world, but a whisper into yourself. It starts when you begin to doubt, when you notice the voice in your head saying, you should, you must, you can't. And you ask, who taught me that? It grows when you stop pretending, when you let go of the applause and ask yourself what truly makes you feel real. It explodes when you lose everything fake and still find yourself standing, naked, unloved, unrecognized, but free. The process is brutal because it demands sacrifice. Not of things, but of illusions. The illusion that you are what others call you. The illusion that morality is universal. The illusion that being good means being accepted. To create your own values is to become your own God. Not in arrogance, but in authorship. Because no one else has lived your pain. No one else has bled your battles. So no one else should define what those scars mean. You were not born to follow. You were born to carve, and your path will be dark, terrifying, and lonely. But it will be yours. So what happens when you burn the script? You face a void, a silence that mocks you, a fear that maybe you are nothing without the mask. And that's where creation begins. Nietzsche didn't ask us to rebel for rebellion's sake. He asked us to build where we used to borrow, to define meaning where once we inherited it. Your life can be a ritual, or it can be a revolution, but only if you choose to write it, because in the end, the most sacred act is not to worship the values of others. It is to create your own, even if the world doesn't understand. Especially then, the moment you let go, everything falls. Not just the rules, the image, the structure, but you, yourself, your certainty, your center. There is no applause, no clarity, only collapse. And it's terrifying, You thought freedom would feel like flying, but it feels like drowning. Because when you burn the values you were taught, you also burn the person who lived by them. And what's left is silence. This silence is not peace, not yet. It is the death of who you were. And every death feels like failure, but it's not. It's the first sign of truth. There is a hidden cost in becoming real, the death of the false self, the one you built to survive, the one that smiled for approval, the one that adapted, adjusted, accommodated. That self is not evil. It's just expired. But it won't go quietly. It clings. It whispers, "Don't let go. You'll be nothing without me." And for a time, you believe it. You reach back for comfort, for familiarity. But the old self no longer fits. It's too small, too silent, too scared. Nietzsche warned us. When you stare into the abyss stares back. This is that abyss, the moment when the ground beneath you dissolves. No map, no guide, just you, alone. You may feel lost, but you are exactly where you need to be, because collapse is not destruction. It is transformation. It is the shedding of masks, the breaking of cages, the unraveling of illusions. You are not falling. You are molting. And yes, it hurts, because you are killing what kept you safe. But that safety was also your prison. Carl Jung called this the encounter with the shadow, the confrontation with everything you denied, suppressed, or rejected about yourself. The parts you buried to be loved, to be accepted. Now they rise, demanding to be seen. And it feels like madness, like darkness, like death. But it's not. It's birth. This is where you stop asking, "Who should I be?" And you start listening to the voice beneath the noise, the one that was always yours. The false self dies screaming. It doesn't surrender. It shatters, it curses, it begs, because it knows once you leave it cannot follow. And yet its death is necessary, because only in that empty space where the old self crumbles can something true emerge. Not perfect, not polished, but real. You are not who you were taught to be. You are who you choose to become once the masks fall away. So let the collapse happen. Let it hurt. Let it strip you bare. Because in the ruins of the false self, the real one begins to breathe. It doesn't scream. The true self doesn't arrive like a thunderstorm. It comes quietly, through cracks in your denial, through long silences that you used to fill with noise. It begins as a hum, a low vibration, a magnetic pull towards something you can't name, and you start noticing strange things. You feel more tired around certain people, more alive in certain places. You can't pretend the same way anymore. You can't laugh at what used to numb you. This isn't change. This is return. The self beneath the performance is waking up. You begin to listen, not to others, but to yourself, not to the voice of fear, but to the soft rhythm of authenticity. It's fragile at first, like a candle in wind, but it grows. Every time you say no when you mean no, every time you rest without guilt, every time you speak even when your voice trembles. This is the voice beneath the noise. It's not loud. It doesn't need to be, because it speaks with clarity. It knows who you are. You've spent a lifetime betraying this voice to fit in, to be chosen, to be loved. But love that demands you abandon yourself is not love. It's control wrapped in flattery. So you begin again. You choose discomfort over approval, truth over harmony, depth over popularity. And yes, it costs you. People leave. Roles collapse. Old goals feel meaningless. You feel naked. But this nakedness is sacred, because now you are not performing. You are existing. This is what Nietzsche meant by becoming. The soul returning to itself, not through imitation, but through initiation. Not by conquering the world, but by reclaiming your place in it. The voice beneath the noise is not new. It was always there, waiting. Through every fake-sing smile, through every silenced scream, through every moment you told yourself, "I'm fine." It watched you wear masks and call them faces. And it waited, not to punish, but to return you, now that you've collapsed, now that the noise has died down. Listen, the voice you've been running from is yours. Speak with it, walk with it, live by it, and never betray it again. Solitude. Most people run from it. Others numb it with noise, crowds, or validation. But there comes a moment in your becoming when solitude no longer feels like abandonment. It feels like arrival. You've stepped away from what you were told to be. You've silenced the noise. Now you find yourself in a space where nothing is left to hold on to. No roles, no masks, no performances. Only you. At first it aches. The quiet feels sharp. The world no longer orbits around your need to be liked. The silence is not absence. It's confrontation. But slowly this solitude begins to transform. It becomes sacred. And in it, you start to remember who you were before the world told you who to be. There is a strange paradox in growth. The more real you become, the fewer people remain. Not because you've become worse, but because you've stopped performing. You no longer bend to expectations. You no longer apologize for existing. You don't pretend to be smaller so others feel bigger. And this, in a world built on performance, is seen as a threat. But this is also where you begin to find peace. Not in their acceptance, but in your alignment. You begin to walk alone, not in exile, but in sovereignty. You eat alone. You think alone. You create alone. And these moments stop feeling lonely. They feel like prayer, like reunion. Carl Jung believed that individuation, the journey toward wholeness, requires you to separate, to confront, to integrate. And solitude is where this happens. Not by escaping others, but by facing yourself. The voice beneath the noise needs silence to grow. You begin to trust your rhythms. You feel when your energy is off, when your body says no, when your intuition whispers truth. You notice the beauty in the mundane, the ritual of your mornings, the stillness before sleep, the sound of your own breath. No one else can do this part for you. The sacred solitude is where you meet yourself. Not the self they taught you to be, but the self that existed before the world touched you. You may miss company, you may miss being understood, but in this aloneness you are finally becoming whole. You stop asking, "Who will walk with me?" and start asking, "Who am I?" even if no one does. Because you've realized it's better to walk alone in truth than be surrounded in illusion. You no longer beg for seats at tables that insult your soul. You build your own table, even if you eat there alone. This solitude sharpens you. It removes what is unnecessary. It reveals what is essential. You stop entertaining people who confuse attention for affection. You stop chasing things that look good but feel empty. You stop giving explanations for your boundaries. You start living as if your existence is already enough. Because it is. Solitude doesn't mean no one is around. It means you are finally with yourself. And in this sacred solitude, you begin to see clearly what is yours, what is not, who you are, who you've outgrown. You become rooted, not in the approval of others, but in the truth of your own being. You no longer chase love, you become it. You no longer seek purpose, you embody it. The world may still misunderstand you. Let it, because the ones who are meant for you will meet you here, not in your performance, but in your presence. And until they arrive, you are not waiting, you are becoming. There comes a moment when understanding is no longer enough, when reflection becomes avoidance, when knowing the truth without living it turns into another mask. This is the final step, not contemplation, but action. You've walked through collapse, you've faced the abyss, you've sat in sacred solitude. Now the question is no longer, who am I? The question is, will I live it? Not tomorrow, not when it's safe. Now, living without permission is not defiance, it's devotion. To the self you've uncovered, it means waking up and no longer asking, is this okay? But instead asking, is this true? It means not waiting for applause before you begin. It means you stop trying to prove your worth and start living from it. And yes, people will misunderstand. They will call you selfish when you set boundaries. They will call you arrogant when you walk away. They will call you lost when you refuse to follow. Let them, because you no longer live to be understood. You live to be whole. This world teaches obedience, not truth. It rewards assimilation, not authenticity. But there is a deeper law, an inner code, one only you can hear. Carl Jung called it the individuation process, the slow, sacred unfolding of the self. And Nietzsche called for the Übermensch, the one who rises above inherited values to create their own. To live without permission is to embody both. It is to say, I will not shrink. I will not twist my truth to fit their comfort. I will not betray my own soul for a place at their table. I will speak when silence is expected. I will walk away when staying would rot me. I will build what I cannot find. This life, your life, does not need to be justified. It needs to be lived. So you start. You make choices not out of fear, but alignment. You stop waiting to be chosen and choose yourself. You stop asking, what do they want from me? And start asking, what is asking to come through me? You write, you move, you love, you leave, you break cycles, you break silence, you break open. And from your scars you grow, not perfect, not polished, but undeniably real. So here you are, after the fire, after the void, after the solitude, here, at the edge of yourself, ready to leap. No more rehearsing, no more waiting, no more asking for permission to be who you already are. This is the revolution, to live in a world that says stay small and choose expansion, to walk in a society that says conform and remain yourself, to breathe in a culture that thrives on fear and exhale freedom. You are not too much. You were just too real for a world addicted to faking. So live like it matters. Live like you're free. Live without permission, because no one else can do it for you, and no one else is coming. Become who you are, Nietzsche.